Sin Smack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome back to the podcast about film by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler, and joining me are the usual suspects, owner of Outpost 515 Productions, Mr. Samuel Pace Twomey.
Good evening.
Owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Tom Haggis.
Robot Tom is dead. I have survived. I sound awesome now.
Long live Tom. And owner of One Genome Short Productions, Mr. Gabriel Rowald.
Good evening, Cinesmacketeers.
And joining us, we have a guest this month, is Southsider Studios' resident anime guru, Mr. Dennis McCullough.
Ah, crap. This is where I'm supposed to say something witty, and it just went away. Hi, everybody.
No, for the record, you don't have to be witty there, because usually we're not. At least one or two of us
We try, but
That's true.
Yeah.
it doesn't always happen.
I usually fall flat.
Well, welcome back, guys. It seemed like a longer month than normal, but it could have been because we were all pretty busy.
I blame the snow.
Yeah, that too.
The 3 feet of snow made it really interminable.
That's true. Just real quick, the two films that we're going to be reviewing this month, I remember quite fondly growing up as a teenager, getting into anime, and these were a couple of the first films I remember watching as my first animes, really, before, really knowing that maybe some of Transformers was from Japan, this, that, and the other. But I have a really good anecdote about a judge that used to be on this podcast that I'll share later once we get into everything. You guys will have to remind me. So without further ado, I'm going to poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, cyborgs and demigods, welcome to the main event! Tonight, it's a futuristic battle royal as street punks from Neo-Tokyo clash with bionic cops from Newport City! In the first corner, from 1988, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, starring Kaneda, Tetsuo, and Kiai, Akira! In the second corner, from 1995, directed by Mamoru Oshii, starring Motoko Kusanagi, Bateo, and Togusa, Ghost in the Shell!
Let's move on to our first round, which is writing.
Yeah, well, for me, this is kind of my first real full experience with anime movies. I haven't really watched very many of them. I've always been interested in seeing Ghost in the Shell, and it's one that's been on my list, but it never really bubbled up to the top. So this is really kind of my first experience with it, but I can see why you would be hooked by these movies. Both of these movies were really very interesting, and I felt like they really stood the test of time. They seemed relevant even today, even though they're 20 years old or more.
Right.
As far as writing. I think when we get into acting, it's going to be challenging for us because I watched the dubbed version, so it's going to be hard for us to really judge the original acting. But I think we still, I think we have the same issue with writing as well because it has to be translated. So who knows how well these were translated or how accurately. So I think it's a little bit tough, and we might have to take it a little bit easy on these films because of that fact. But I guess one of the first things that I noticed about Ghost in the Shell is that it was a really cool, interesting, creative idea, but I felt at times it got kind of into this kind of philosophical talk where it didn't really, like they were talking, but it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. If you know what I mean. It's like, okay, well, they're trying to be philosophical about the human condition and what does it mean to be human, and what, the ghost in the shell is kind of like maybe like your soul. What is the soul of a human being? But at times they kind of lost me with this kind of, philosophical speak kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas in, and I won't say it, I'm sure I won't pronounce it appropriately either. Akira.
Good job, Gabe.
Thanks. I tried. I listened to how they were saying it in the movie. It's not how I normally would have said it, but I was like, that's the pronunciation is different than I expected. I felt like their storyline was a little more clear, their dialogue was a little more clear, and their philosophy was more clearly kind of spelled out for us. So I personally enjoyed the writing in Akira a little bit better than Ghost in the Shell, because it didn't get into this kind of muddy philosophical area to me.
See, and on the other hand, I thought I liked the philosophical stuff that Ghost in the Shell was getting into. I kind of felt like both movies took a little while to get going, but when they hit like the maybe 2/3 of the way through it, they really just kind of put the pedal to the metal and started, moving the plot forward, I think, at that point, because I felt both of them just kind of dragged at the beginning. But I enjoyed the philosophical stuff in Ghost in the Shell, and I thought it helped carry that lull, the first 55 minutes of the movie for me.
Right. Well, and speaking of the philosophical stuff, it reminded me of, and maybe not coincidentally, of the later Matrix films a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Because they get into that too, where they're talking this kind of philosophical, like, meaning of human, being human and all this kind of stuff. But at times I was like, what? They're saying words and I understand every word, but I still don't know what they're saying. And I got that feeling a little bit from Ghost in the Shell.
Well, to me, Ghost in the Shell kept my attention a little bit more. Like, everyone I talked to, friends-wise, was like, Akira is the way to go. And I watched it, and for some reason, Akira, like the boyish aloofness and stuff at the beginning, and like that wasn't as exciting for me. And to me, the Ghost in the Shell really pulled me in quickly, and I think told a pretty heavy story with all this kind of philosophical stuff pretty rapidly, and you could and it was accessible to get into and kind of just go for the ride, even if you don't understand all of the different levels of the dialogue of the characters.
That's true, Sam. And one thing about both of these movies, yeah, Ghost in the Shell moved faster. It was also 80 some odd minutes, where Akira is 2 hours long. And if you're not prepared to sit for 2 hours, that can be a very long 2 hours. They do both drag a little bit. I will admit that. Akira was one of the first animes I ever saw that I actually went out of my way to see. And I'll be honest, I did not understand a single thing that happened in that movie the first time I watched it. I actually had to watch it 2 or 3 times before I truly got a good grasp of what was going on. And then watching it this time, really actually come to truly understand what the story was truly about. And just like with Ghost in the Shell, oh my, yeah, they're both very deep, very cerebral topics to be talking about. I mean, what does constitute a human soul? And Ghost in the Shell, I mean, I'm still not entirely sure what a ghost is. I do know that the shells, however, are the cyborgs that are running around there. Whereas, I mean, in the writing itself for Akira, they actually mention, it's actually a line in the movie, what happens if you give an amoeba the power of a human? What happens if you give a human the power of a god? And this is basically, Akira is essentially about a boy with an inferiority complex given the power of a god. And in the many, many ways that he can use it for good or use it for his own selfish purposes. Ghost in the Shell was very much, just like with the Matrix. I kind of compared it more to Terminator Rise of the Machines, where, spoiler alert, towards the end of the movie, you come across a artificial intelligence that's now self-aware and wants to reproduce, make something totally new. So, yeah, to me, they're completely different subjects. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm wondering, did you all watch the dubbed versions, or did you watch subtitled versions?
I've actually seen all three versions. For this one, I saw the 2001 redub, because there was the original version that came out in 1988, which was dubbed and released in the United States in 1990. And then 2001, it was re-released with a whole new dub and a better, and the translation was actually better.
And that's Akira you're talking about?
Yes, I guess I should have mentioned that, huh? Yes, yeah. Akira, because Ghost in the Shell, on the other hand, only had one dub, because Ghost in the Shell, it was released at the same time in Japan as it was here in the United States and Great Britain. So.
And I do wonder, to kind of make an offhanded reference to another movie about Japan, I do wonder how much is lost in translation. How much.
Nice.
Well, and then when it comes to that philosophical talk, how much of that is a result of the translation and not necessarily the original, dialogue. Maybe in Japanese it makes a little more sense than it did translated, or maybe there were concepts that were difficult to translate to English. So I wonder how much effect that has on the writing when we're watching a movie like this.
I thought it was interesting when I was watching it that there were, American sayings and idioms that were worked into it that I was like, I'm pretty sure they don't say son of a, in Japan. I don't think son of a bitch is actually or pain in the ass, he says at one point. And I wasn't sure exactly how that worked, but I thought whoever translated it did a pretty good job because it all seemed pretty seamless. So, and I watched the subtitled version of both of these because that's the kind of movie snob I am. So,
So you heard the actual. This will come into play in the next round, of course. But you heard the actual Japanese performances of the voice performances.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, I didn't have that luxury, so it's gonna be difficult. I mean, I'm gonna have to judge it based on the American dubbing performances. But anyway, that's the next round.
Yeah, let's vote this round.
All right, Gabe.
I thought they were both very interesting, but I think I preferred Akira more than Ghost in the Shell.
All right, Tom.
I think when it comes to script, I'm going to go Ghost in the Shell because I thought it was a little more efficient storytelling.
Sam.
I'm going to go Ghost in the Shell on this one.
And Dennis.
Oh, I get another one?
No.
2 votes. Not fair.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Last time I was on here, it was the first shutout, and now you've gone and spoiled that one for me too. Anyways, when it comes to writing, I guess this just simply comes down to the preference. I honestly will have to go with Akira for this one, namely because to me, Ghost in the Shell might be faster, but it has to be. Akira is more thorough.
All right. And Ghost in the Shell, oh God, I just totally lost my trivia. Closed out the wrong window.
Would you like me to pull it up?
No,
just make it up.
Here it is. Ghost in the Shell and Appleseed mangas written by Masamune Shirow are some of his great...
Masamune Shirow.
Okay,
wow.
there you
I've
go.
never seen it like
Masamune Shirow.
Oh, he joined us on this podcast. Are some of his great works in Japanese literature. That's all I can find about the writing here. And the music for the film in Akira was completed before any of the composers saw a frame of film or read the script. The music did have to be edited to fit some scenes, which we'll talk later about because I've got some words. Anyway, let's move on to the second round, which is acting.
The acting's tough, especially with all the different versions of voice and in some ways that is the performance. In some ways, the animators also for acting. So this is a very difficult category. How do you guys break down the acting in anime?
It's kind of I guess it's kind of difficult for me even with this because you're not any movements that the actors might make, they're taken away. All you can really truly go off of is their voice.
Yeah, for this category, I'm gonna lean more on the animators. For facial, looks and
that is one. I guess that is one way to look at it. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
Well, this isn't the first time that we've done animated movies. What have we done before in this category for animated movies? Have we based it on voice performances alone, or I don't remember us talking about that.
In the past, I think we've lended it more towards the voice performance.
Yeah.
But in this one, if we do visuals, like there's a lot of boobies in this one. Like it could come down to who has the best breast animation. Because there's a lot of them.
That's got to be Ghost in the Shell. No.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell's got far more boobs in it than Akira does.
Yeah,
and at least the boobs in Ghost in the Shell are mature boobs versus the 13-year-old boobs you get from Akira.
Right.
You know.
I didn't know she was 13.
Yeah, she's that entire biker gang, Tom. That entire biker gang's 14 years old.
Thanks,
and the
Dennis.
girlfriend's younger.
You just made what I did totally inappropriate. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You're welcome.
Can I?
All right, I have a serious question since we're talking about boobies anyway.
We've totally gone off the rails.
This is totally serious. I got to ask you, if there were not, these breasts in this movie, how do you think it would have affected their popularity? I mean, how many young teenagers was this, accessible porn because they couldn't get it any other way? I'm serious. I'm 100% serious. I feel like some of these movies get their popularity because a 13-year-old's like, oh, I get to see a breast, even though it's a drawn breast. So,
okay, having been a teenager when I watched these,
yes,
Akira, the boobies as we're speaking of them, did not bring me into the film at all. Like, it didn't make me want to watch it.
Right.
The reason I wanted to watch Akira is because it reminded me a lot of one of my favorite movies, and also I know it's one of Gabe's favorites, Blade Runner.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Again, probably not coincidental.
Right. And same with kind of Ghost in the Shell, but I will say, I mean, I was 95, so yeah, I probably was like, well, I'm going to give this one a shot because there's some boobs in it, animated boobs. But it's not like I was doing anything watching the movie. But for me,
this has become a confessional now.
For me, it was more of watching the action. I've always been really action oriented when it comes to films. And I have to be honest, watching Ghost in the Shell the first time, I was totally lost. And after watching it a few more times since then, I'm no longer lost. But I do have to say, for me, there was some kind of draw, like, oh, this chick's kind of sexy looking. She's drawn sexy. So, I mean, let's just put it on Front Street. Yeah, it kind of pulled me in because of that, but I rewatched it not because of that. Does that make sense?
No, that's what I kind of anticipated too. Like when I was a kid, we went and saw Transformer the movie, and we came running into the house and like, how was it? And you're like, oh my god, they said a dirty word in a cartoon. It was so freaking awesome. And it's kind of that it's mm-hmm. taboo, but because it's animated, it's kind of okay. So
right.
But I don't think I don't know.
And maybe this is a discussion, better left for the overall category. But I also wonder about culturally why nudity is so prevalent in anime films. And I feel like there's a cultural component to that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way, but it just seems like it's not uncommon for anime movies.
That's a good point.
Gabe, you're right. It is not uncommon. Nudity is not it's not so taboo in Japan. It really is not. They've got public baths and everything like that. So, I mean,
it's true. And I wonder if it's partly, partly that it's not taboo, but also partly because culturally, if they're if they're repressed in one way or another. I don't know. I should have done a little more research on the topic before I brought it up, but I do. It does make me wonder what the what cultural forces are creating anime that contains so much nudity, because I think it's pretty common.
Hang on, I'm googling naked Japanese girls. Just a second, I'll let you know what I find.
Okay, all right.
You'll find
let us know what you
plenty
find.
of them.
Oh my god!
Talking about the same.
Oh my god!
Talking about the same culture that has used panty machines out on the street.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Yeah. It's
And as far as I think Gabe was right. This is probably a subject better left for the overall, namely because I got a theory as to why Ghost in the Shell has far more boobs in it than Akira. And you can actually find it in the trivia right here where it says,
"Hey, that's my job."
Where do you think you? And this is one of those things I mentioned it earlier, where it was brought out in Japan, the UK, and the United States at the same time. That was namely because it was intended to try and draw more interest in anime. And how are you going to draw more interest in anime? Let's show some boobs.
True.
Honestly,
true, could be.
But it worked for heavy metal. Like I always think of heavy metal and those big old, those tig old biddies.
Yeah,
that's right. And we're talking about animated boobs, and we still like to see animated boobs. I mean, it's just, God, we're horrible males. Anyway, let's get back on to acting.
We're talking about acting?
Yeah. Somehow we segued into boobies, but.
And one thing, I mean, if you're just going to go by the voice acting, neither cast did a horrible job, to be honest with you. So,
are you talking the original Japanese cast? Or are you talking about
I'm talking for both movies. I'm simply going by the most.
Are you talking about English dubbed or
English dubbed? Yes.
Okay.
I'm going by the most recent versions I've seen. And one thing, as a bit of an anime aficionado myself, obviously, that's why he asked me beyond. There are some shows that I've watched in English, and there are some shows I've watched in Japanese, and it just simply depends on how I came across them first. Like with Naruto, I will only watch that in Japanese because that's the voices I get. That's the voices I grew accustomed to hearing. Ghost in the Shell and Akira both, I actually watched in English the first time. And that's actually how I prefer to watch it. So it is nice to actually be able to, watch the action and not have to spend half of it reading. And sometimes, especially some of the films from the 90s, you actually have to pause the movie so you can actually get all the sentence in because they talk so damn fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm as far as the voice acting goes, I'm going by the most recent versions I've seen, which for Akira is the 2001 version that was re-released in theaters, and Ghost in the Shell, which is the only English version that they have out there, as far as I'm aware. I don't feel that either cast did that bad of a job. It's just simply, from what I could tell, it's just another day. It's just another paycheck for these guys, and yeah.
Yeah, I felt like in Ghost in the Shell, I felt at times it started out pretty good. I was a little bit concerned about watching them dubbed because I didn't know what I was going to get, and most of the time it was pretty good. But there were certain times when it was like they were just reading the words. The inflection wasn't in the right place. It didn't seem like there was any emotion, and they were just reading the words. And maybe that was part of the performance. I don't know, because I mean they were cyborgs. Maybe they were supposed to be a little bit more on the monotone side, but I felt at times like that the performance was spotty. It wasn't consistently good throughout. Whereas I felt with Akira, I felt like that was much better. That there was much more emotion to it. They weren't simply reading the words to give us the dialogue. They were actually performing. So personally, I preferred the performances in Akira, but that's just me. I don't.
Gabe, I do want to ask, when the movie first came up, was it Pioneer or was it manga that showed up on the screen?
For which one? For
Akira.
That's a good question. I don't recall right off the top of my head. Since you've been mentioning the different versions, I've been
That's how you can tell
I've been
the
thinking about
difference.
looking up which one it was I saw, because I guess I just watched the one that was available to me on Amazon. So
Ooh, okay.
so I'll check it out.
Yeah, why don't you
Sam?
check that out and get back to me?
Sam, Tom,
Well,
you guys have anything
Yeah,
else to
what?
say about acting? I think Sam
I mean-
fell
No.
asleep.
Nope. No, I was here.
I mean, I had said something about leaning on the animators and that kind of thing, and I kind of preferred Ghost in the Shell in terms of that aspect, because I thought the facial animations were a little bit more thorough. Akira, it kept kind of sliding back into that real stereotypical speed racer type stuff. The big grin, embarrassed face thing, and the one face that the Colonel wore the entire movie.
yeah, it was weird. It was weird how it would kind of switch. Sometimes it wasn't like that, and
Yeah.
other times it was. Like, especially when Kaneda was like nervous or embarrassed or whatever,
Yeah.
and he'd kind of do that kind of thing, and his face would look like almost like too cartoonish, like
Yeah.
childish cartoonish.
Yeah, and it's a little frustrating that there's other things they took so much realism to it.
Oh, yeah,
When
for sure.
Tetsu was in the hospital and he's drinking the water and you can see the last couple drops run down the glass into his mouth. I was like, this is like really great animation. And then something like that happens and it kind of ruins it a little bit. So
Yeah, and
Well-
it makes you wonder about their workflow a little bit.
Yeah.
How many animators did they have going, and which ones did which parts, and that kind of thing. That may be a result of a number of animators working on it simultaneously. I don't know.
And
That's what I
one
thought.
One thing also to keep in mind, though, as far as animation goes, Ghost in the Shell is 7 years younger, and the main difference. There is one major leap happened with all animation all around the world in that 7 years.
Akira. You mean Akira?
Between Akira and Ghost in the Shell. And you're right, Akira is 7 years older. My apologies. But a
Sure.
big leap happened there is that they started using computers to animate almost everything. And so one thing with Akira that a lot of people might not know, it is entirely hand-drawn. There's no computers in it at all. Where Ghost in the Shell,
Very
you can obviously tell that computers were in use for it.
Well, yeah, I got nothing to say. I mean, you guys have kind of. Well, no, wait. I do have something to say, just real quick. And it's also the styles. Their styles are completely different, not just because of the technology being used, but also there are different styles to animes. One anime to another anime, there's going to be different styles. A lot of times they take them from the mangas that they are basing the film on. So they try to capture some of, when they get like Tom was saying, when they get frustrated or they get confused, and they kind of get that anime look to them, or when they get angry. And I think that leads more to them trying to stay true to the manga a little bit. But that just could be me.
And also generally the difference in animation styles and everything like that is heavily dependent on the original artist.
Yes. All right.
And so
Let's put it to a vote. Sam.
Ghost in the Shell.
All right. Dennis.
yeah, I'm going to go with Akira, namely because I mean, I will admit I am a fan of Johnny Young Bosch, who did do Kaneda in the version I saw. He is also the voice of Vash the Stampede, so yep, Akira.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Akira as well, because I felt like the performances were more consistent throughout.
And Tom.
Ghost in the Shell.
Wow, we are splitting this.
We're splitting it. This will be interesting.
Akira was one of the first Japanese anime films to have the characters' voices recorded before they were animated. While this is the typical practice in U.S. animation, in Japan, the animation is generally produced first. And in ordinary anime, characters at least blink to create the feeling of being animated in this. But in Ghost in the Shell, Motoko's eyes intentionally stayed unblinking many times, and the director's intention was to portray her as a doll. So I think that goes with what you were saying, that sometimes it felt emotionless, and I think that was the call.
It's possible that was
done on purpose.
Yeah.
It could be.
All right, so let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
So when I'm looking at this category, what I am confronted with for me is on a wider scale. Ghost in the Shell tells a pretty complicated story really efficiently. Akira tells a surprisingly complicated story, but it kind of takes its time doing so. And I got about 3/4 of the way through Akira, and I was like, Ghost in the Shell is a far superior film. But the last half hour of the movie is so weird, and it completely just threw me for a loop. But I mean, I knew what was going on through the entire thing, and I thought that I got to a point where I realized, oh, this is what we've been building up to. You know, the showdown in the Olympic Stadium, and this reveal of Akira, and I was like, well, it's much better than I thought it had, and I wound up enjoying the destination or the journey after I arrived at the destination for Akira. On the other hand, I thought that Ghost in the Shell did a better job with the design of the film and the look of the film. And there were times where I was looking at it, and I could have sworn that some of the plates that they were using in the animation were actual photographs. And I don't know if you guys have any trivia on that. If they actually used photographs in the background slates and animated on top of it, and tried to make it a little bit more seamless. But there were some really great shots, and they were usually just like montage shots of the city, or the boats going down the river and that kind of thing, and it was very beautiful. And so I mean, that's kind of where I'm torn, I'll be honest with you, and we're going to vote on this in a couple minutes, and I got to hear from you guys to know what you think, because I'm kind of on the fence for direction. I'm
going to speak up real quick and say, watching both of these films again with older eyes and maybe a little wiser, since what first drew me to these films, I realized something. Akira is an action adventure film, and Ghost in the Shell is more of a drama, and that didn't really hit me until I watched these films this time around. And sure, there are dramatic moments in all film, and there are dramatic moments in Akira, but Ghost in the Shell seemed to be more dramatic in that it was looking more inward, and they were just trying to solve something that's making them question their existence.
Yeah, for sure. I hadn't thought about that, but when you mention it, yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, and Tom brings up a great point. And watching it again today, I remember feeling the first couple times I watched Ghost in the Shell right after it had come out, and I was just gobbling up all anime that I could after watching these movies. It felt really slow paced, but now I really kind of dig it just because of those background when they're just setting the mood of the city. Like Tom said, it looked like photographs, and they could have just taken photographs and rotoscoped over them, they animate them. And it just felt, I loved it. I loved the look, and it made me appreciate it more, seeing it through my older eyes.
Yeah, when I was watching them, I definitely thought they were both very beautiful films, and I was like, well, these are like moving works of art. I mean, it's artwork that's animated, and it was just, it was very beautiful at times. And I think both of them were beautiful in their own ways. Now, it's been mentioned before. I think Akira's biggest problem is its pacing. It is admittedly a little bit slow. I like the performances. I like the story. I like the dialogue and the acting, that kind of stuff. But the pacing was definitely a little bit slow. Whereas Ghost in the Shell was definitely more succinct and to the point. So I think that's the strongest point for Ghost in the Shell right now for me.
I'm just kind of curious, guys. Did we watch the same Ghost in the Shell? To lift a phrase, all right, Tom, you ignorant slut. The montages is what lost me on Ghost in the Shell. I mean, we're going into this we have this action sequence. She fights naked. Hey, let's get fans. And now, okay, we're now talking philosophically on a boat. Okay. Hey, what's that weird voice? I don't know. Let's have a 3.5-minute montage. And just explain absolutely nothing. What was the freaking dog for? I mean, seriously. Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. They're both very slow-paced movies. But at least with Akira, you don't have a 3.5-minute Ghost in the Shell doesn't have just one 3-minute montage. It has 2 3-minute montages put into the film. Akira doesn't have that. At least Akira keeps a story moving. Doesn't take a break halfway through, and I'm just guessing that had something to do with budget concerns or something. But no.
Just because you have a story that's gonna. I don't think the Akira story moved as quickly along as it could have. I think Akira, there's a kick-ass 90-minute movie on Akira if they just kind of stop dwindling on some things. It's like, how many times does Tetsu have to break out of something? And I mean, it just seemed like a lot of it was really repetitious. And
But there were also more angles to Akira than there was to Ghost in the Shell. I mean,
what? No.
Okay, I'll go ahead and repeat myself. There were more angles to Akira than there were in Ghost in the Shell.
I don't think so.
Well, repeating yourself doesn't make it correct.
That's just slowing down your pacing.
I didn't say
it is slowing down my pacing. Thank you, Gabe. But no,
your pacing seems repetitious.
Anyways, no, it's just there are more angles to Akira than there is to Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell focuses on the girl who fights naked. I'm for some reason forgetting her name. Thank you. Yeah, no, it focuses a lot on her, but it is, to me, it's just as confusing today as it was when I first watched it. Where, granted, maybe if I watch it a few more times, maybe I will understand it better. I had to do that with Akira. But at the same time, there are some politics in both of them. Both of them seem to have a little bit of a political thriller to them. You could easily say both of them are cyberpunk animes. I stand by my statement, though. Akira has many more angles to it than Ghost in the Shell does.
Sorry, I lean on the boobies.
Of course you do.
I like to lean on boobies too.
Yeah, and you're at just the right height. You can use them for pillows, Tom.
That was unnecessary.
That was a low blow.
They're all low blows with Tom.
Oh, come on.
Are we really fucking doing this? Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, Tom. Withdrawn.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Your personal attacks have changed my mind. Akira's the better direction.
Oh, it worked. Okay.
Sam.
Should we vote on this?
Well, I got to ask Sam.
Yeah.
Sam hasn't. Sam, do you have anything to say about the direction?
It's really tough. I don't know what it is. I'm going to say Ghost in the Shell just because it gets to me faster, and Not to do with exactly how long the whole pace of the story is, but just like the characters themselves and kind of this, you're thrown into this different reality. And I think some of the visions in Ghost in the Shell, like the rotating point of view. I mean, it can be disorienting, but also looking at the beautiful alternative cityscapes, not much different than our own. I really enjoyed that.
All right. So I'll just put you down for Ghost in a Shell then, Sam.
Yeah, save yourself a question.
And we'll just roll right into voting. Tom.
Segue. I love it.
Tom, what's your vote?
My mic was on mute, and I'm still going to vote Ghost in the Shell.
Dennis.
I think I'm firmly in Akira's camp on this one.
All right, Gabe.
I think I'm going to have to go with Ghost in the Shell on this one, in part because of the pacing issue for me.
All right. Okie dokie. The following dialogue from Ghost in the Shell is a direct quotation from the Bible. 1 Corinthians 13, when I was a child, my speech, feelings, and thinking were all those of a child. Now that I am a man, I have no more use for childish ways. What we see now is like a dim image in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. What I know is only partial, then it will be complete as God's knowledge of me. And I don't have anything that enlightening for Akira, but the production budget was nearly $10 million for Akira, a record sum for a Japanese animation film.
Yeah, I saw that it was about that, and I thought, wow, I was surprised that the budget was that high.
I mean, it's just before we move on, I just need to say, for everything not being computer generated, for everything being hand-drawn cells, Akira is just breathtaking when you look at it like that. Just how it looks, its feel, everything. And I mean, you can tell that with Ghost in a Shell, they had the computer-generated images, and I'm not saying they were bad. I'm just saying that you can compare the two, hand-drawn with computer animation, and Akira was pulling off some pretty fantastic-looking stuff without the need of computer animation. And I'm not saying that takes away from Ghost in the Shell. I'm just saying that it's quite a feat. So let's.
Yeah, definitely, it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah,
especially considering the length of the movie too.
Yes, exactly. So let's move on to our fourth and final round, which is overall.
Ghost in the Shell.
Well, I mean, overall, like I said, they are two completely different stories. They ask, and this is one thing. This is why generally, my fiance, she is a sci-fi fanatic, and that's the main reason for science fiction in any culture is simply to ask questions about the human condition. Both of these stories successfully do that. They never answer the question for you, which it's never supposed to. It's just simple. Like I said earlier, though, with Ghost in the Shell, it's asking, what exactly comprises a human soul? And then with Akira, who are we to, can we actually handle the power of a god? There are some things that, maybe mankind's just not meant to have. All right, mankind's not meant to fly up into space and destroy a freaking satellite. And I'm going to pass the ball on to whoever wants to take it. Lateral pass.
But you were killing it, man. You were killing it.
No, right? And for some reason, I just went blank. Like my ghost went away.
Oh.
I'll be 100% honest with you. I've never been very interested in anime. Okay, so when I was working at Suncoast Motion Picture Company, these were two of the hot titles in our anime section that got stolen all the time. And
sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it was Mike. He has them all.
I have like 20 copies of each.
Well, thank you. There are only 6 Suncoast motion picture companies left in the world, so
You're welcome.
you're
Mike, it's your fault they went out of business.
you're trying to be funny, but where are you going to go get your Rocky and Bullwinkle t-shirts? Like, where are you going to go? So
eBay?
yeah, they're probably stolen too. Anyway, so I mean, I've never been a huge fan, and I mean, like Gabe, this was kind of my first introduction to it, and coming out of it, I'm probably no bigger a fan than I was going in. I just, there's a lot of the style choices and the way that the story's told and animation that I just kind of puts up a wall between me and the movie. And people talk about Miyazaki and his amazing films and Spirited Away, and it's so hard for me to get into these films. And that being said, I don't think Akira and Ghost in the Shell are bad films. I think they're important films in the history of animation, and I respect them, and I liked them more than I thought I would. But I don't know what it is about anime that just kind of blocks. No, wait, I just did say what it is, isn't it? So
it's not for everybody, Tom. I mean, you're also in your 30s, so if this is honestly your first delve into anime, I can see why you're not into it.
Exactly.
The average target audience is teenagers.
Hence all the boobies.
Right. And if I wanted to go see boobies, I'd go upstairs and I'd look at some boobies. It's like, and then I'd put on,
keep the computer. Oh God, I'm sorry, Tom. That's the only way I get to see boobies anymore too. So.
Yeah, you're practically married, so.
Practically, yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so I'm married and I can see real live boobies anytime I want. So I don't even care about this stupid contest anymore. Screw this. It's Tom Smack. That's what we're doing.
He's going upstairs.
Tom.
No, I don't even want to look at boobies anymore. You kind of just blew that for me too.
Wow.
But yeah,
that's serious.
I was serious though. Generally with anime, manga, those are targeted towards teenagers. So if the fact that this is the first time you've seen any kind of an anime or even gave it an attempt, that's probably why you're not into it. It's not targeted towards you.
I understand that, but when these movies came out, I was that target age, and I didn't really have a desire to see them then either. So, and I appreciate your theory, and I think it makes sense, but I don't think I would have enjoyed these when I was 16 either. So I guess I don't know why that is, but
it's just taste.
I mean, it is taste.
It's just taste.
I know. I guess I as a movie buff, I'm trying to figure out what the appeal of them are, and I kind of been touching on that. Is it the boobies? Is it the the metaphysical storylines that they like to talk about? But it's like a heady movie with boobies. I think that's
okay. Do you want my input on why I like animes besides the boobies?
I would love to hear this.
All right, so everyone knows. I mean, especially you guys know, and maybe the audience doesn't. But I love giant effing robots. All right, and
I never would have guessed.
Animes are filled with giant robots, and I also love space stuff and anime. There are tons of anime that deal with space stuff, spaceships, this, that, the other. So for me, it's a way for what I kind of like for me to be able to watch it, because I mean, in the past few years, even before we had Transformers and Pacific Rim, there weren't a whole lot of giant robots besides a Japanese Godzilla movie, that would have Mecha Godzilla in it. So, and as far as space is concerned, I mean, you had Star Trek and Star Wars, and you had Battlestar Galactica, which I love all of those as well. But it's a way for me to get more of what I like. And it's true. Like, I'll watch one, and I'm just like, I just wasn't into it, and it all comes down to taste. It could be how it was animated. It could be the story. It could be the music. But something in there took me out of it. and I was
So
doing
you
that.
kind of like them for the technology part of it.
Yes, I do. And
'Cause that's definitely an aspect of the anime genre.
yes,
Yeah, boobies, metaphysics, and technology.
yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you got
What
me.
more
In
do
that
you
order.
need?
In that order as well.
And, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm all for a tit flick that makes you think, but
That's why I have a
brilliant. We'll
subscription.
sell 1 million.
That's why I have a
That's a great
Man's
description of
tit flick.
Ghost in the Shell.
That's why I have a subscription to Cinesmack. Or not
I'm all
Cinesmack.
for If a movie can keep 2 parts of my body occupied, then way to go.
Both brains.
Multitasking.
Both brains.
I was actually referring to my head and my heart. Thanks, you perverts.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Your
it has been shown that there is kind of so I was talking about your head and your stomach because it has been shown that there's a cluster of nerves in your stomach that acts kind of like a primitive brain.
Oh God, then I
What
must
did you
have a
think I
really
was
big
referring to?
brain.
Yeah.
No, being a fat guy, I guess
Check
you know which
out
one I think with.
Brain on Brad.
And I said Cinesmack, I meant Cinemax, but yeah,
Oh,
Same diff.
yeah, same difference.
Name dropper.
They send a crack
We're going to
sometimes.
start a sister podcast
Cynic
and call it Skin a Smack. Yeah.
oh God! I wonder if that's an actual website.
Probably is, and you probably don't want to look at it. Or maybe you do.
Maybe.
What'd you guys think of the music? As you know, I am a soundtrack nerd. I do own the Akira soundtrack. It's not on a rotation on my iPod, but every once in a while I will play it, just because it is kind of jarring if it's on shuffle. It just kind of hits. But watching Ghost in the Shell again this time around, I really enjoyed the music, and I remember it kind of bothering me when I was younger. What's your guys' take on it?
I'm trying to think if the music really stood out to me personally. I do remember the music in Akira and thinking about how well produced it was.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it goes to the production value for Akira is really very high, and in part probably because of its relatively big budget.
Right.
And I think I remembered enjoying the music in Ghost in the Shell as well, but it's not coming back to me right now. I'm not like hearing it in my head.
Right.
So I don't know if it stood out enough.
That truth be told, I have to agree with Gabe on this one. Akira actually feels more like a movie score, while Ghost in the Shell feels like a movie soundtrack to me. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and truth, and I can hear the music from Akira coming back to me now. Ghost in the Shell, I purged. So,
Okay. All right. Sam, Tom, Gabe, you guys, Dennis, you guys have anything else you want to put into this overall category?
I hate you all.
Well, I want to talk.
Just overall.
I want to talk about yeast rolls. Like, I'm seeing these commercials for this restaurant that's giving away yeast rolls for people to take home. I know it's a little off topic, but it's in the draw, and I had to get it out there.
Did you think it was kind of like a sushi roll of some sort with yeast in it?
No,
it's
no,
more
it
like
just
a
sounds nasty. Like, take these yeast rolls home. You'll love this warm, yeasty, whatever. And I'm like, that doesn't sound good to me. But I digress.
Sounds
I
like
digress.
yeah. Sounds
It's
like
all
something
Ghost
that
in
should
the
be
Shell.
medicated.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess one thing I would like to add is just simply, it's obvious at this point. I obviously prefer Akira to Ghost in the Shell. Namely, one thing Ghost in the Shell, a lot of people have seen it. Anybody who ever claims to be an anime fan has seen Akira. It is a staple in any anime diet. It has to be watched at some point. Am I wrong, Mike?
No, you're not.
Okay, so, it's to me just Akira had a much deeper message to it.
What?
Yeah, it did. It did.
Let me guess. Someone disagrees.
I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah, I'm totally calling shenanigans. The themes in Ghost. I'm sorry to cut. No, I'm not. I'm cutting you
No,
off.
go ahead.
The,
Go ahead. Go
the
ahead.
themes in Ghost in the Shell are way more universal and much deeper than Akira. Which, I mean, Akira was basically about evolution, but I think the themes in Ghost in the Shell and AI and the advancement of computers and what's the line between computer and man and machine. I think that's much more relevant today than I mean, evolution is definitely happening, and okay, whatever. Sorry, that completely.
No, Tom, you know what? You have your opinion on that. I will just simply agree to disagree.
I'm not familiar with that O word you just used. I speak fact.
Yeah, again.
English
Yeah,
is his second language. Fact is his native language.
All right. Well, you boys ready to put it to a vote? Unless you have anything else
Absolutely.
to add. All right. Start with Dennis.
I thought I already cast for Akira, but you know what? I'll take a second vote. Akira.
Sam.
Ghost in the Shell.
Gabe.
Well, I liked them both very much, and this particular vote is difficult for me because I think they're both very good in their own ways. But I think I'm going to have to go with Ghost in the Shell as well.
All right. And Tom.
Yeah, they both have their merits, but I'm going to go with Ghost in the Shell because it was shorter.
All right. Well,
I can't fault your logic on that.
instead of giving you guys trivia here, I'm actually going to tell you the story about a Cinesmack judge that used to be on the show and Akira. After my first viewing of Akira, if I'm remembering this correctly, I remember telling Mark Johnson that he needed to watch it. And so he had a Laserdisc player back then, and he went out to Video Warehouse, which is in Des Moines. It used to be the only place you could rent Laserdiscs. And he rented Akira. And he had been working all day at his job, and he worked evenings a lot because we were still in school. So I should say he was working that night, closed up, went home to watch Akira. And what a lot of people don't know about Mark is he used to be addicted to sugar. Like, he used to eat raw Pixie Sticks all the time, drink Mountain Dew and Surge like it was going out of style. And he calls me up because it was the weekend then. It was Saturday, and I was getting ready to go to work. And he calls me up, and he told me, Mike, I haven't been asleep yet. I've been up all night. And one thing you don't want to do is watch Akira at 4 a.m. when you haven't been to bed yet. He goes, it will mess you up. And he said that for the next 2 or 3 days, he had just wicked bad nightmares because of Akira. So I always found that funny that Mark, after having an entire day of school and then working evening and the night and closing up and going home and probably coming down off a sugar high, watched Akira and tripped out his brain without the use of illegal drugs. So let's move on.
I honestly did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. And just in case anyone's listening that don't know what Laserdiscs were, just think of a DVD that was the size of a record. All right.
Right.
That's all
and
you
then
got to know.
I'm sure with the length of that movie, I'm sure he had to get up halfway through and flip it
And
over.
flip it. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
It's before they start. Well, yeah.
Or did he have one that would do it automatically?
He had one that did it automatically.
So it didn't even interrupt his
right. His tripping.
his trippy experience.
So let's move on to what you guys would like our fair listeners to watch. And we'll start with Gabe.
Okay, well, actually, this movie was already mentioned, and I was trying to look through my list to see if I'd already recommended this or not. But it's definitely along the lines of these movies, and the animation I thought was very similar to Akira, and that is heavy metal.
Nice.
And I assume all you guys have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's another one where it's not really an anime per se, because I think it was produced in America, if I'm not mistaken. But it has a very similar style, and it has its fair share of boobies and interesting philosophical stories.
That's why
but
I've
also
seen
kind of also just kind of over the top adult type animated mayhem, violence and sex and all kinds of stuff, and it's actually kind of fun. I don't know. I haven't seen it for a long time, so I don't know if it stands the test of time. But I do remember kind of enjoying it when I saw it originally, and thinking, "Wow, this is really cool to watch an adult animated movie."
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I remember the first time someone introduced me to heavy metal, and I believe it was middle school, and I watched it. I'm like, oh my God, things like this exist.
Right.
I mean,
right.
there's naked women, there's cursing, there's drug use, there's
blood and
gore. Yeah, it was.
You forgot
nuts.
the sex.
Oh, and
it's
the
all
sex,
it's
yeah.
all animated.
Yep, exactly.
Somebody sat around and drew this frame by frame.
And
That's because it only takes one hand to draw.
It took a long time. They had to take breaks. They needed a nap every now and then.
should have taken him 2 years. It took him 6.
Why is this taking so long?
All right. Well, thanks, Gabe. Sam, what is your recommendation for this month?
Well, I'd recommend. Actually, you caught me pretty offhand. I didn't have a recommendation per se.
All right. Do you want me to move on to someone else? You can think about it.
No. Watching these two films made me think a lot. I knew someone that was really into anime when I was in college, and it was interesting to kind of go back and watch these films and think about that. There was an anime series that I watched called The Golden Boy, is what it translated to.
I own that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's fun, kind of irreverent, and it does include a lot of outlines of boobs and like fake boners and like adolescent, hormones and sexuality, and just someone that would kind of do anything to be with that perfect girl, and kind of the awkwardness of guys, especially young guys, trying to be much wiser than their actual age. So it's a fun series called The Golden Boy, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Golden Boy. He had a weird fascination with toilet seats too. So,
all right, Tom.
I'm gonna reach back into my archives and go with the voice talents of Dom DeLuise, Shannon Doherty, and Will Wheaton for the classic movie Secret of Nim. It's freaking awesome. It's a great story. It's the PETA movie of the week. So, so if you want to see a cool movie about torturing mice and crazy tractors that kill people or mice, and it's fantastic. I absolutely love it, and it's one of my all-time faves.
Will Wheaton has a voice in that?
Yeah, Will Wheaton was Martin.
Really?
Yeah, and Shannon Doherty was in it, and
You just blew my mind hole. I
I
did not realize that.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I got Akira to patch that up for it.
No,
All
as
right.
soon as I thought you were going to say all dogs go to heaven, but
No. I'm very selective in my Don Bluth films. Pretty much, for me, it's Secret of Nim and then American Tail. So, that's the extent of my Don Bluth lovingness. So,
Fair enough. Dennis.
yeah, great. I actually did think this out. I'm simply going to say, though, anybody could recommend a Miyazaki film. Tom, your kids would love a Miyazaki film, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. And I'm not just going to recommend one film, but I'm going to recommend a few of them. They're all by the same director, Satoshi Kon. He is the one who he directed Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers, and Paprika. If you really want to, Mark, if you're listening, if you really want to trip on sugar, watch Paprika at 4:00 in the morning. But he also did the TV show Paranoia Agent. That was actually on Cartoon Network for a bit. Satoshi Kon, he is unfortunately no longer with us, but these are great movies to actually just sit down and kill a weekend with, to be honest with you. Perfect Blue and Paprika are just, they'll mess with your mind. Tokyo Godfathers and Millennium Actress both have a lot of heart and soul to them. And so, any movie that Satoshi Kon has directed, I will go ahead and recommend that.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
I am going to recommend a series. And I'm really glad. I was a little nervous. I had 2 series pop up, and I figured I was going to take one if Dennis chose the other. So I'm glad you chose those, because then I get my first pick, which is an anime.
Can I guess?
Yeah, what is it?
Is it Cowboy Bebop?
It is Cowboy Bebop. So Cowboy Bebop follows around a group of bounty hunters in the future, and they're just a ragtag bunch. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but you have to watch it. There are some silly moments and there are some funny moments, but there are also some pretty serious moments. And I'm going to recommend my favorite episode, which is episode 20, and it's titled Pierre Le Fou. And Tom, just look it up online, see what you can find, but look up Cowboy Bebop Pierre Le Fou. And I think it is one of the finest pieces of directed work out there.
Good. Noted.
It's fantastic. I really enjoyed the series, and when I got to episode 20, it blew me away. And they actually also did a film that showed at the Fleur Cinema, and I was lucky enough to go watch it. I also own it on DVD now, so I have the whole set. But
I remember going to watch that with you too.
Yeah,
our girlfriends at the time were like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah. It's called Cowboy Bebop. Check it out if you guys want a good series. There's only 26 episodes. There's actually, 27. It's called the Mishmash Blues, but due to violence portrayed in the series and the violence occurring at the time in Japan, the series was briefly canceled and Mishmash Blues was created. So they also have a film that kind of ties everything else together. But it definitely kind of goes kind of fun episode, serious episode, fun episode, serious episode. So just go in kind of and give it a shot, but definitely check out episode 20 called Pierre Le Fou.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How do you guys, where do you guys find anime movies to watch without having to necessarily buy them? Obviously, you could purchase them, but right. and some of them might be available for streaming on Netflix or Amazon, et cetera, but I'm not sure that most of that stuff is easy to find.
Netflix, Amazon. I actually watched 2 today that I thought I would check out. One I didn't like, and I thought I would, and it had giant robots. It just wasn't for me. And then the other one I really did like, which was more computer generated, and I really enjoyed it. But I mean, knowing Dennis, I've borrowed from Dennis. Dennis has borrowed from me, and then just seeing stuff online. Maybe someone else posts something on Facebook about it. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. I know for a long time the big mainstream one was Dragon Ball Z. I mean, especially back in the 2000s, Dragon Ball Z was all the rage. And there's just an unlimited amount of Dragon Ball Z stuff out there.
I guess I'm not asking necessarily about how you find out about which series to watch, but like when you finally decide you want to watch one, where do you normally?
Netflix is a good spot. There is a crap ton of it on Hulu. If you've got Amazon Prime, you'll find a metric. Blank ton of that too. Just like me and the other half were currently watching Inuyasha on Amazon Prime. I introduced her to Inuyasha a while back, and that is a fun series. If I know Mike doesn't like it for some reason, doesn't like anything that's done by Rumiko Takahashi. But sorry, I don't know if that's true or either, Mike. But
just start throwing out just start throwing out lies about me. It's all right.
Well, I tried introducing you to it. You didn't like it. Okay.
I don't like it. I don't like it. But yeah, it's just about taking a chance on Netflix, taking a chance on Amazon, and then there's also on Cartoon Network. They do Toonami still. Yeah,
that's where a lot of anime is discovered, is on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And the Cartoon Network has to take a little bit of credit for a lot of it actually hitting the mainstream here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
So
cool. Well, I was just curious because, I was surprised to find, these. Well, I wasn't super surprised to find the two that we watched for tonight's episode online. But, some of the other stuff that you guys are talking about, it's like, well, if I wanted to go watch that, I mean, where would I find it? But it sounds like it's not that hard to find.
I would gladly.
Not anymore. It used to be really difficult to find when we were into it originally.
Yeah. I mean, we would go to Suncoast and, like Tom said, we wouldn't. No. Yeah, we would steal it. No, I mean, we would pay out our $40 for one VHS tape, just because we wanted to watch it and we wanted to see it. So, yeah, I miss Suncoast because of that. I really do, because, Best Buy, they carry it, but they carry more towards the mainstream. And sometimes when you're looking for a lesser known one, it was always easy to find it at Suncoast. But I mean, yeah, we've got the internet now, but there's still, I'm part of the old breed where I still like to go out and look for it. And it's the hunt, and then, sitting down and watching it instead of waiting for that smiley box that has it in it sometimes, So,
yeah, anime used to be a very expensive It used to be very expensive to be into it. Though, Gabe, I will. You know what? Tonight when we get off of here, go on Netflix. It's on Netflix right now. The Devil is a Part-Timer. It's 12 episodes. Basically, the devil ends up in our world and has to work part-time in a fast food restaurant.
Okay.
So
sounds interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's cerebral and funny. So,
all right.
Okay.
All right. So let's find out who won here. Let me poke the monkey, and you guys will know.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Ghost in the Shell.
Let's move on to the last part of the show, which is where you can tell people to stalk you and maybe, show you their boobies if they're animated. We'll start with Tom.
People can stalk me on Vimeo and Facebook, or if you're in the Ames, Iowa area, you can stop by our brand new studio and check out our cool new digs and sweet couch. You can come and sit on the couch and talk. Actually, call me first because I'm not there enough. So.
Congratulations.
You're doing your own casting couch podcast?
No. Yeah, we're not doing a casting couch situation. It's just it's a couch that I saw online that I liked, so I purchased it, and it's actually quite comfy. So,
nice. Well, congratulations on the new digs, man.
Yes,
very
cool.
much.
Congratulations, Tom.
Thank you very much,
Sam.
Yeah, you can find me online if you want to know about the 48-hour film project, which returns to Des Moines in 2015. You can go to 48hourfilm.com/Des Moines. And within the next month or so, they're going to have a brand new website design, sleek and ready for the next generation of independent filmmakers.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Gabe?
You can find me on Facebook, or you can look up onegenomeshort.com.
All right. And Dennis?
I am also on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, Pyrolord SSS. PYROLORDSSS. And the first 100 followers will get free pictures of my animated boobies.
And not to give anything away, they're not animated.
But they're just as hairy.
Oh.
TMI.
I just got the first one. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow the studio. On YouTube, just type in Southsider Studios. You can also find us on iTunes. But we would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It's very important. If you like the show, if you enjoy it, or even if you don't, at least review us on iTunes. And that helps other people either say, A, yeah, I want to try this thing out, or B, just kind of skip right over it. But we would rather give them a reason instead of no reason at all. And you can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And just real quick, I went back and I listened to last month's episode, and I want to say thanks to Tom for doing such a great job at hosting it.
Yeah, no problem. That was a lot of fun.
And he
great job.
Definitely does a much better job than I do. And we're going to keep that going. Gabe and Sam are also going to be hosting as well in the upcoming year, and I really look forward to that. So for March, we ride west as the Searchers meet the Unforgiven at high noon. This is going to be really good. So for Gabe, Tom, Sam, Gabe, I put Gabe twice. So for Gabe, Tom, Sam, and Dennis and myself, there we go. That's better. Thanks for listening, and go catch a flick. See, Tom, I wasn't lying. You are a better host.
I'm not going to deny that.
Are we going to do our hot mic thing?
Oh, God. I was waiting for Sam to say something.
Yeah, Sam, you've been kind of
I was, but I think Gabe just did it for us. That's even better. And then be like, are we going to say the hot mic thing? Were you still rolling then?
Yeah, we're still rolling.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.